Some Quartzy here. Now that we've linked our QuickBooks Online account and our Quartzy account, I'll show you an example of how the integration works. So to get started, I'm on the request module here, and I want to take these two Sigma Aldrich requests, group them into a purchase order, and sync it into QuickBooks Online. So to do that, I'll select them with the checkboxes here, and then click Group into PO. So that opens up this purchase order details page. And from here, you'll notice a couple of things. There's these fields called class and customer. These are optional fields that I have enabled in my QuickBooks Online account. So here's an example of a previous purchase order. You can see that I have customer and class on here. If you have not enabled these in your QuickBooks Online account, they won't show up in Quartzy. But in this case, you'd say I want to label these as a specific project. That's what I'm using class for. And then a hypothetical customer list for my test account here. So you fill out these values before you sync the purchase order, and they will automatically be populated in QuickBooks Online. The other field that's important to note here is called QuickBooks Vendor. So you'll note that this is how the vendor was represented on Quartzy, Sigma-Aldrich. However, when this vendor was created in QuickBooks Online, for whatever reason, the hyphen was not included. So to address cases like this, we show you your QuickBooks vendor list because we don't want to accidentally create a new vendor or have some mismatched records. So it's important that you have your vendor selected as part of this process. So now, before you sync it, it's important to make sure that your item names and everything is correct. I've got the class and customer filled out, quantity and price is good to go. And so the only last thing that I'm going to need to do is potentially add a purchase order number here. And so there's two ways to do this. If you leave it blank, QuickBooks will return the next purchase order number in the incrementing list. So the last PO I made was 11140. If I leave it blank, this will automatically create PO 11141. You also have the option where sometimes somebody might say, I have this label where I like to say that all my Sigma Aldrich POs start with SA, and then we put in today's date, and then an incrementer to make sure that it is always unique. So this is saying this is my first PO of today for Sigma Aldrich. If you have a pattern like this, you can type it in yourself, and then when I hit sync, it will automatically use this number in QuickBooks Online. But for this case, I'm just going to leave it blank. So now I'm ready to go. I click sync, and then the next thing we'll see is that it'll populate in QuickBooks Online. Here we go. You'll see the purchase order was saved successfully. It created it as 11141, and we'll go into QuickBooks, check it out real quick. Here we go. You see 11141 for Sigma Aldrich. And a couple things to note, all of these details should be filled in based on your settings. Right now, Sigma Aldrich is empty for me in my test account. You'll also see here that I have the use Quartzy's template option enabled. So this is where you see a vendor code and then the catalog number to make sure that this always comes across as a unique item. And then this is using the item name pulled from Quartzy, and then it pre-fills all of this information for you. So the ideal scenario here is the lab manager can go ahead, group things into a purchase order, create it from this screen, and then turn around and check out at the vendor's website using this purchase order number without ever having to go into QuickBooks Online. A couple other things I want to point out. These were new items that were created. These are using the job materials, I believe, setting that I had selected. So that's what the default expense account is used, that when this item was created, it will always use job materials per my settings. And then the other example I wanted to show you is if you, instead of selecting the templated option, you could select a default item instead. And so this is what happened here is I previously made a PO and had the setting that QuickBooks has never seen these 4 items. And rather than creating 4 different items, it just uses the fallback lab supply product. Each item on the PO ends up having different names or descriptions, as QuickBooks calls it. But these, if you go into your product and service list on QuickBooks Online, there will only be a single item here called lab supply. So that's the difference between those settings. At this point, the PO has been created. You go ahead and click Save Changes. And that's the end of the flow from the Quartzy perspective. This PO can then be used to check out with whichever vendor. If you ever need to get back to it, the PO number is here in the table. You can click it and it'll load it again so you can get the view of the current status. That's the end of the integration. If you have any questions about it, please reach out to support@quartzy.com. Excited to hear your feedback. Thank you.